This tutorial is a brief demonstration of how to get started in Anaplan. I'm going to start from scratch with a completely new model and build a very simple income statement fed from a more detailed overheads module. So we'll start with Manage Models, click on New, give it a name, and I'm going to click on Create Model. So what we start with here is a completely empty model. Now it's probably best to start at the Settings tab. If you work down these in order, so I'll start with the timescale. I want it to start in financial year 11 January, and I want the calendar type to be months. Click on Versions, and in this case I want the start date for my forecast to be 2011 and January, and I'm going to make that the current forecast. I've already got some users, and I'll come back and set security access to these users a bit later on. Now let's go to set up the organization. Now typically I would have the organization in some sort of text file. So here I've got cost center and a code, and it's the immediate parent of the cost center there. Now you notice in this one I've got a company total, the UK, so I don't need the pre-configured one, total company, there. So if I go to Configure tab, get rid of that top level item, this is like an auto total, and I'm going to grid view and I'm going to import that text file. So I click on Import and click on Upload New File, and I select Organization, and it goes through these steps and I end up with my import mapping screen, in which case all I'm going to do is map the cost centered organization parent to parent, code to code, and run the import. So these here are just the column headers, and it's created my organizational hierarchy. So now let's go ahead and create a module. A module, in spreadsheet terms, if you think of a module as being a large workbook. So I'm going to click on Insert Module, and in here I'm going to type in the line items. These are like the calculation items. So for an income statement, it will be something like sales, cost of sales, gross margin, and so on. So here I have an income statement that I've either typed in or I've copied and pasted in. Now I need to set up the page labels. So if I just drag organization and versions across there, I now have a four-dimensional model, which are my calculation or line items, by time, by organization, by versions. Give it a name, so I'm going to call this one income statement, and then click OK. And by doing this, it sets the default orientation. So in this case, income statement by time is my default orientation. I can now go ahead and set up formulas. So I'm going to say, for example, that gross margin equals sales less cost of sales. You can see it's point and click, and I can just overtype the operators. Similarly, overheads, click on the equal sign, overheads equals staff costs plus rent and rates plus utilities plus marketing. Very simple to set up formulas. Profit is simply equal to gross margin less overheads. I'm just going to put in a couple of numbers just so you can see this all working. So 10,000 for sales, 5,000 for cost of sales, and you can use the copy facility to copy across the timescale. So that's my first module created, and it's all multi-dimensional, so I can just change page by clicking on one of these cost center labels here, or I can change from forecast to actual. So those are my two versions. If I click on View Income Statement, it takes me back to my front page. Now I'm going to create another module. In this case it's going to be called Overheads. So again, click on Insert Module, give it a name, and I can reuse these organization and versions dimension as pages, and in this case my line item is going to be a more detailed expansion of one of my lines of the income statement. So let's say I've expanded the utilities, so it's going to be gas, electricity, water, and that adds up into total utilities. click on OK. Again, I need to set up a formula for total utilities, so just click on that, and it's the sum of these three. And just so we can see something happening, I'm just going to put in a few numbers here. And what we'll do is we'll set up a formula to feed these through into the income statement. So what I want to do is make that line there feed through into this line here. Again, it's simple, point and click. Go to utilities, click on equals, utilities equals overheads, click on that line, click on the tick, and there we go. So it's very much point and click like you'd have in a spreadsheet. Now, I've got a multi-page sheet here, multi-page module if you like, with one sheet per cost center. If I want to set security on this, so that different people have different access to different slices of the module, if I go to the Settings tab, go back to Users, what I want to do is assign all these people so they open just their cost center. So the organization needs to be configured so that it has selective access. So I click on the Selective Access Enabled checkbox. I then go back to the organization grid view, and you notice an extra column has appeared here called Right. And in this case I can just go through and assign people to different areas of that module. So, for example, I've given this person access to UK North and all the cost centres that belong to it, and this person here I'm going to give access to the UK South, and I'm going to keep myself as having access to the grand total, so I'll be able to see everything in this entire module. So that's the selective access done, and what it means is, let's just pivot this round. When the person in charge of UK North opens this module, all they can see is Manchester and York and the North, and they can't see any of the rest. Okay, let's move on to the Q1 forecast. So I'm going to go back to the default view, and in this case what I'd like to do is to import my actuals. In this case I'm just going to type in 3 lots of actuals, so let's just put some numbers in there. And what I'd like to do is to merge those 3 months of actuals with my forecast for the rest of the year. In order to do that, I go to the Settings tab, and if I go to Versions, I need to set the start date for the forecast. I need to move that on to be April, so 2011-04 being the 4th month. And then when I go back to the income statement, you can see here I have 3 months of actuals, 9 months of forecast, and that gives me my rolling forecast. So there we have it, a very simple model, income statement, fed from overheads, and showing you how to do a merge of actual and forecast, and to set basic level security. Thank you very much.